Welcome back to the Decision Lab Party Peeps. Today, we are cutting through some wellness hype very close to home. In fact, so close to home, I can see it from my window. We're talking about CBD American Shaman. It's a KC-based company. Surprise, surprise, they're known for their CBD products. But today, we're talking about a class action lawsuit over an addictive opioid-like product. You may have heard of it, 7. We're going to talk more about what that is and what it isn't. And then the federal enforcement actions where thousands of 7 products were seized from their facilities. Did I miss anything, CJ?
No, I think that pretty much covers the basis of it. This has been like really, really big news around Kansas City lately because it's something that originated locally, but you've probably seen one of these stores in like wherever you live. Like, so these have grown out. This is not the first time they've been in trouble with like the FDA, but this is the first time that it's kind of made it to the mainstream because they are producing something that is highly, highly addictive and has caused a lot of issues, which, as Cody mentioned, we will get into that in a second. How we're going to break this down is as Decision Lab discerners. So the way that this is going to work is we are going to talk about what does the research actually say about the 7-OH product, how much of this crisis was created by their marketing hype, and lastly, what can this tell us about the health and wellness industry as a whole, and how can you protect yourself? So without further ado, I think we can dive right into the research and what we know.
The Decision Lab is proud to announce its first sponsor, Apollo Neuro. They are not only TDL approved, but Chloe and I have been using these for years. You probably heard us talk about them and show you our Apollos on the podcast, okay? If you fall asleep fast but wake up at 2 a.m. with your mind racing, or your wearable keeps telling you that you're stressed without actually helping you, the Apollo is for you, okay? It doesn't just track your stress and sleep, it helps you take action. It's built on a decade of research, which we break down in depth with the founder, Dr. Raven, who is an MD, PhD, on the Apollo episode that we have with him. Apollo learns your stress patterns, calms your nervous system in real time, and helps you stay asleep. Users get up to 60 extra minutes of sleep per night, plus 40% less stress and 25% better focus. Apollo was just featured in Forbes for their Vagus nerve science, and they just published a new randomized pilot study suggesting it is the first wearable that helps prevent burnout. Freaking crazy. Go check that out, okay? Decision Lab listeners get $90 off. Hit the link in the description, grab yours. Sometimes I wish that I could just go through these questions and be like, here's what the research says in one word. Here's how much of this was marketing and what is it? So I could just answer those so instantly, but
hey, I mean, I think we could start with one word. Do you have one word for what the research says? Bringing us in?
Yeah, don't do it. Like, bad. It's not looking good, I'll tell you. Or I would just put NA for research, because from my research, from my look at it, there is not much real research, if you will.
No.
There is, that's kind of a false way to frame it, but like human research. There is research, but there's not like human research or anything that you'd look for in with the claims that they're making about this stuff. But let's not go there. Let's talk about let's follow your flow. You know, I'm chaotic, but what is 7-O really, I think, is a great place to kind of start.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're the neuroscientist guy, so I'll let you break it down for us.
All right, beautiful. So I don't know, have you ever heard of kratom or kratom?
Kratom? Yeah, kratom, I mean, it's something that's like big in like smoke shop marketing. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Before it was big there, it was big in like Asia as well. Like they used to chew on kratom leaves and all sorts of stuff. Totally normal for pain relief, light anxiety relief, things like that. Chewing on the leaves, not injecting very specific active compounds from something that like kratom. So kratom, like you're saying, is a leaf, and it has this 7-O compound inside of it. And so it is generally, the effect is more mild because it has some of this 7-O hydroxynitrogene. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm not a chemist. We should have Chloe on for this one. She would have known this way better. But 7-O for short is part of kratom, like a small part of it, a percentage of it. What these 7-O products are is usually they're extracting just that 7-O. So they are heavily concentrated and isolated. So instead of getting the entire, it's like the difference, I think a good example here would be the difference between like a dab versus bud in the weed space. Like a dab is more concentrated THC, and bud is leaf and is the actual plant, if you will. not just straight freaking THC. Does that analogy make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and that should also like help our listeners. It definitely helped me kind of realize why this is a thing now, because I mean, you've seen kratom products like marketed pretty widely in like the smoke shop space or gas station space or things like that. And so it's like, why would this be a problem now? Why is the FDA involved now? And it's because this is a new development.
Yeah.
This like hyper
100%.
concentrated version of this is something that's new, and like, I mean, basically like just got rolled out without any testing, and then has led to some unintended consequences in leading to like addiction and withdrawal and just other issues.
Right. It's crazy because it is affecting the same portion of your brain, this mu opioid receptor, which I doubt anyone knows what the hell a mu opioid receptor antagonist is. It essentially just means that it attaches to the same portions of your brain or parts of your brain that things like morphine, Oxycontin, heroin, same receptors as those, meaning it does similar things. To simplify it, it does similar things that those drugs, those opioids do in your brain. And this has been shown. Like, I think you put research in here. I pulled some research as well, as far as like animal research that shows it being affecting those same receptors in the brain as other opioids. And it is like, I was reading this stuff. I'm like, how is this possibly being sold in gas stations? It's like, I literally couldn't believe what I was reading.
For the record, some of the research that I cited, and we will, of course, put everything below. This is from like the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. It is 10 to 13 times more potent than morphine. And this was being sold in corner stores. And CBD American Shaman is kind of at the center of this because they were like a major distributor. So.
Right. And what I was reading is that toxicologists, humans whose literal job it is to study these things, consider this a novel opioid rather than some random like dietary. This ain't creatine, brother. Like this is like this is crazy. Like when you told me this initially that we're going to do this episode, I literally was like, there's no way that this is possibly true. And then I was doing all this research for the episode. I'm like, holy shit. So yeah, no, this is nuts. And that is what essentially what that means is that it's being marketed as something that is like creatine, or that's too simple of an example, but this is healthy for you. It'll help you with pain relief and anxiety relief and help you with depression and things like that. And it is all natural. And it comes from this kratom leaf that has been used in Eastern medicine, blah, 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 blah. Like anytime someone says Eastern medicine, I'm just already like concerned because America is probably going to bastardize that phrase or already has. However, the downside is that this is, again, much more like an opioid. A high potency opioid. So overdosing, there's a risk for overdosing on this. Respiratory, like where you literally like stop breathing, dude. And last but not least is withdrawal when you try to stop. So it creates dependency and terrible withdrawal symptoms and things like that, just like other opioids. So it's the craziest American story I've heard.
We will absolutely have to get into like more of the market because I had a lot of thoughts on that. But just wrapping up like this research section real quick, in case you didn't have it clear enough that this is obviously not FDA approved. They're in major trouble with the FDA over the distribution of 7-OH. And there is no evidence to suggest at all that this is like safe or effective as a pain treatment in humans. There's even like limited human research, I believe. From what we were looking at, it's a lot of animal research, and that doesn't look super promising.
It's an opioid, so it is going to be effective for pain.
Right.
But that does not mean that it is safe in any way, shape, or form. So
yeah, so just like not safe for consumers at all, and yet it made it to so many, and that's an incredibly
bottom line
fact.
Is that it like behaves like a powerful opioid, but there's very, very little evidence that it's actually safe as a consumer health product with no regulation at all.
Actually, like kind of our next section here is like looking at the actual like distribution of this. So like the mechanism and the potency. It just that it reinforces addictive effects. It creates terrible withdrawal. As far as like what has actually been done about this, it's the FDA, the HHS, and the DEA jointly moved to remove this and have cited it in the same legal category as heroin.
Like the scheduling, like a Schedule 1 type
Yes.
drug, essentially, is what that means.
Yes.
Because when you said that initially, I was like, what do you mean it's like heroin? But it's in the same schedule which doesn't make it like any better, to be clear. But just to give a distinction, like this, whenever you hear Schedule 1, Schedule 2, Schedule 3, all that stuff, that's what CJ is talking about.
Yes.
The other thing that blew my mind that I saw that you put in here was that in relation to dependency and withdrawal, treatment and addiction organizations, like the people whose job it is to help people who are addicted to these types of things, they're publishing guidance on kratom and 7-0 type withdrawal and people who are addicted and dependent on these things that includes treatments that are used for opioid use disorder. Like, so the people whose job on the front lines it is to help people who are addicted and withdrawing from these super powerful opioids are saying that you should do the same exact thing you would do for any other opioid for 7-0 products. That is wild.
For something that was just accessible. And I think this is a good time to we've got like sort of a transition here into the marketing. I'll bring it up that the FDA issued warning letters to multiple companies, including Shaman Botanicals, which is important to us because, again, like that's local and there's a lot of news coming out of Kansas City about this specifically, where there's no safety and efficacy evidence. They're selling them in multiple forms. So if you're wondering how this is like actually being taken, it was in pills, shots, drink mixes, a lot of the things that they have as CBD products, which they've also gotten in trouble for. Maybe that's a conversation on its own. But they were selling this under the same thing. And of course, like CBD is still a little dicey, but this would look familiar to consumers. And then Cody, I will let you get into what their marketing like responded to.
Oh my God. The press release, bro. Oh my God, dude. So the FDA essentially told these people like, do not do this. Like, this is bad. Like, we're warning you, we're coming after your ass, and we're trying to put this into Schedule 1 as a drug, and you're just selling it to general consumers and addicting the masses. Like, what the fuck, essentially, is what the FDA said. And they decided to send a PR or like a message back to the FDA that essentially kind of defends their side of things and like talking about how the overdose risk is overblown, like that it's actually safer than it looks, like all of this stuff. And so I took a look at this press release because it is public, which I don't know why they would ever publish this publicly, but I guess that's the point of a press release.
I think the FDA can publish this stuff as well. That's where I found a lot.
Dude,
but yeah.
As they should. Should.
If you're ever curious.
The one that American Shaman released, though, literally looked like, I told you this earlier, that ChatGPT came back with this, like, this looks like it was written by a lawyer impersonating a scientist, impersonating a PR intern. And I'm just like, dude, what the hell is going on? So essentially what they did is they went and got a bunch of people from prestigious institutions like Johns Hopkins and Harvard and all of these prestigious names, like they're collecting fucking Infinity Stones or some shit. And they decided to say all of these prestigious individuals say that it's actually safer than it looks, which what? Like, that does not mean just because someone has done research in the past doesn't mean they've done research on the specific thing you want them to make a claim about. And so essentially what they did is they went to these people, gave them money, said, hey, will you tell people, and will you be in this letter saying that the effects of this don't look as bad as you say they are? It's overblown. There isn't evidence. There's no evidence of harm, essentially, yet in something that has not been studied. There's no evidence of harm. Surprise, surprise. I can't believe it. There's an absence of evidence for something that hasn't been studied yet. Yeah, there's literally there's no evidence of anything. So all of these prestigious individuals were paid to say something, but it's only preclinical data in animals, dogs and mice. There's no randomized control trial. There's no pharmacokinetics. There's no human comparison trials. There's just a gigantic, massive hole in the actual data. And so all of these people got paid. That in and of itself is biased because the company is paying these people to say these things. So it's like, dude, and the things that they're saying aren't based on any data. It's just, it's my gut feeling, which sure is better than the average bear, if you will. Like, they probably have a better gut feeling about these things, but they're still giving you a gut feeling not based in actual data. They're giving it based on nothing. So their biggest argument is the absence of evidence. But the absence of evidence does not equal evidence of absence, right? Because you haven't done any research. There's no evidence of anything. And so it's just, I literally couldn't believe what I was reading. Like, it's insane. And it's just very defensive. It feels very, very defensive. Like, at the very end, we're committed to transparency and consumer safety. which essentially is like, please asking questions, please stop asking us questions and fuck off because we're making money doing this. That's what I read it as.
And
So
I think that's a great transition, actually. The making money doing this, because for those of you that kind of know a little bit about me, like I'm like a podcast producer for Decision Lab, but I'm a marketer first and foremost. So like I'm our brand director. And so I think that the making money part of this is so interesting because this whole issue was actually caused by marketing, which is something that we are
100%.
trying to get so much better about talking to brands on, especially because they can say something in their marketing that might not be true. And as you can tell by the whole spiel Cody just went on, that is why research is important and being able to back up these claims is important. But I want to talk about how this issue was actually created, which is that 7OH was positioned as like a lifeline for struggling stores in the CBD space. And so they were not making enough in sales. And so they are rolling out this new product. And then also alongside rolling out this new product, you're going to have like marketing events for it. So they're giving away samples like advanced alkaloids at premium prices. They're giving away free samples to like people coming in and looking for pain relief and mood support. So a very vulnerable population. They're giving this to them at super accessible price points or even for free, getting them hooked on it. And then it's boosting their sales as these people get addicted. So employees, this part is alleged. We've got sources from this, allegedly downplayed the addiction and withdrawal symptoms. They frame this as safe, legal, and natural, which the amount of times we've seen that from brands that end up being sketchy is
that
so
was something
much.
in the press release they hit on so much too, was the natural piece, which blows my fucking mind.
Yeah.
Like it blows my mind.
You know what?
Like it's like screaming, this is organic while you're putting dino nuggets in the microwave, dude. Hemlock is natural. Arsenic is natural. Bears are natural. Doesn't mean I want to be involved with any of those things.
You know what this made me
What
think
the hell?
of? This like exact way that this whole thing was set up reminded me a lot of probably like 10 to 15 years ago when like vapes were starting to become a thing, and like vapes were marketed as natural and like, oh, it's just water vapor, like it's not as bad for you, and you marketed this like alternative to cigarettes as something that's better because it has this natural factor. And of course, as we know now down the line with plenty of research, how much worse that can actually be for you. This is not the first time that we've seen something like this happen and this like natural thing. And so that's something we try to push really, really hard is that doesn't necessarily hold any weight.
Not at all. And even if you take it at face value, we just told you that kratom, what they're pulling this from, kratom is a naturally occurring thing, sure. But then they're isolating one specific thing from that natural substance and magnifying it by a billion and saying, oh, it's natural. It's like, what the hell, dude? Just, yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
And then
continue. The natural thing got me too. I was just like, this is
the natural thing
wild.
is bad. And just like continuing on this train. So we hear, it's getting rolled out. And as it's getting to be like more popular, it's getting nicknamed legal morphine. Now that's going to sound super appealing to people, right? Like it's something that is typically illegal, but this is legal, so it must be like okay for you to have, right? That's kind of what the implication there is, which is so bad. On top of that, it's being sold in these super accessible places, like we mentioned, gas stations, vape shops, corner stores, and so you can go to the bodega and get your like groceries, and like this is just there.
Bro.
It's not just like the CBD American Shaman. We're focusing on them because they were kind of at the forefront of like the marketing on this. And then as far as marketing materials, of course, this is what we look at in brands that we examine is they've got cherry-picked data or data that is not equivalent to large human trials, as we've mentioned before, because those don't exist.
Right. So how much of this was created by hype? 100% of it.
All of this was created by their marketing.
Dude, what you put in here is perfect. The pharmacology created the possibility of harm. The marketing made the harm inevitable and scalable. That's a great line. I love that. I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. It's like a phenomenon is what this becomes because of the marketing, because otherwise, there's going to be a very limited population that gets hooked on this. But what this is wrapped up with is when a compound is this strong and sold without medical supervision, positioned as a wellness supplement, make no mistake, it was, and marketed with a lot of confidence, then you get dependence, you get lawsuits, and then eventually you will get to federal intervention, which is what has happened now.
Right. So I guess the question then is what does this tell us about the health and wellness industry as a whole overall? What lessons can we take from this?
Oh man.
This is the crazy ass story that happened right in our backyard, and I am so sad. But what can we learn from this? And then look, we've got 3 big lessons that we think you can learn from this. What's the first one, CJ?
I think the first one is super interesting, and I would also love to talk about this in the context of how we ask questions here on TBO. But it is that the evidence gap is a business model.
Oof.
Yeah, this is why we have the lab results section to a T. So wellness is, they might have some mechanistic or animal data versus actual human outcome data. If you want to talk about a little bit more, I know that's like one of your passionate.
Well, yeah, it blends two of my passions, which is marketing and because when I think about a piece of content, if I'm just thinking about in my brain, what is a more viable piece of content? An anxiety hack that no one has ever heard of before and is kind of novel, or an anxiety hack that everyone has heard of and they're kind of bored of. If I make a video about stopping a panic attack with breath work versus stopping a panic attack with a piece of ice on your chest, which one do you think is going to get more views? The one that's more novel and that is less heard of. And so that's where this evidence gap is a business model comes from in my opinion. It's our human nature to be more intrigued and want to look at and believe novel things more effectively, or novel things intrigue us more and make us more curious and make us want to learn more. And so when you look at companies, they are trying to get things to market before their competitors can. And so they are having to take preliminary, and these are marketers, these are business people, these are not scientists. There are not many scientists that, I can't speak in a generalization, but there aren't as many scientists doing this. Oftentimes I see this in people who have a marketing background, not a science background. I'll say that. So they take something that has some mechanistic or animal data, and they try to get it to market first because it is novel. It is new. This isn't kratom. This isn't CBD. This is a new natural thing, right? And they hit on that novelty. So it's not CBD because the CBD is now not novel anymore. We've talked about it a ton. So it's not novel from a marketing perspective. And there is no actual human outcome data yet. And so they're in this little gap where they're trying to be novel. They're trying to be new. They're trying to get new sales. They're trying to get into people's brains. However, there's no human data yet. There's no human trials. And it takes a long time to do that. It is hard. We talk to founders all the time on the show where it costs a ton of money and it takes forever. And so the gap between being able to actually say what they're saying and saying what they're saying is insane. And so they sit in this gap saying natural or this, and there's no evidence yet and all this bullshit. And that's where this business model comes from. It's crazy.
Right. And I mean, you have to think about it also about what an advantage it is, not to say anything sinister about the companies that we've interviewed that don't have research, because a lot of them have research that's leading up to something that is viable. But whenever something like this happens, you have to think that before this research is done, there's no reference for people to go to. They have no other point to trust except for this company. So you can't look up, is 7-OH bad for me, if you would even get that far, because obviously they're not just calling it 7-OH. It's going to be hidden behind some fancy product language. One, you have to have the drive to go look for that yourself. And two, if nothing exists, well, by the time you're already addicted to it and research comes out, you can't do anything. I want to again bring this back to the vape conversation, because I think it's really similar on, it's marketed as this is just water vapor, this is natural, it's better for you, it's an alternative, look, you can do this inside, all of this great marketing hype. And what you see is that people got addicted to it because it's not any different, and now it's worse problem.
Right.
We can only
it's insane. I feel like the one thing, because I just think about this, I'm like, you are correct. There's no place to go for this information except for the company and all this kind of stuff. And in my head, and this is a huge reason why we initially started the podcast, in my head, I am instantly 0% chance I'm putting that anywhere near my body. I would never do that. I would never do that. And I have a frame of reference from my past experiences that has led me to the belief that I would not just put random gas station shit into my body. But not everybody has that perspective, apparently. And so
I mean, you have to think
about this. It just further
reinforces
why this is important. We're doing this.
From the perspective of of course, probably not a lot of our listeners are there, because this is more the biohacking space and people that are really aware and know how to look at this kind of stuff, right? But it's being marketed to a super vulnerable population. Think about people that have chronic pain and weakness.
Exactly.
If you have tried everything and nothing has worked for you, you're going to get desperate.
Exactly, dude. 100% what I was about to hit on next. And they know that. They know that. There's no way they don't know that.
Absolutely.
It's the same reason that you see some crazy, scary thing happening in the world. Then you see some dog video, and then you see an ad. when you're scrolling through Instagram. Like they know the chain of pieces of content you need to see to make you feel like, oh, the world is scary. Oh, this is something that'll make me feel better.
Mhm.
Oh, here's a product that would make me feel better. I'm going to buy it now. They know the chain of emotions in those pieces of content. Like you didn't arrive at that ad randomly. Like same thing here. They know the population that they're targeting, and like it's just sad to think about that. But it does make me happy that we do what we do here.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, on this, while we're talking about the consumers that are a little bit more skeptical, because of course we have access to a lot more information than we used to, and you have the ability to look a lot of this stuff up for yourself. Our next point was science washing is the new snake oil.
Oh yeah, lesson number 2, baby. Couldn't agree more. They absolutely know how to science wash shut stuff now. Mu opioid receptor. Who the hell's going to know what that is? If I didn't study that in school, no shot the average person would know what the hell that was. It just sounds fancy.
And so back up just a second. Can you define science washing for us?
Yeah, it's literally saying that, in my opinion, it would be like they're talking about the this is supported by science, or how earlier in their press release they said that scientists from UCLA, Stanford, blah, 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 say that there is no evidence of negative harm and that this is a great alternative for opioid dependency and getting you off other powerful opioids or whatever. That is science washing. That is, you don't know. All you're thinking in your head when you initially see that is, if a scientist from UCLA said this, that must mean that scientist has studied this specifically, is telling me from evidence, from research that they've done, that this is what they have found from this. It's not, what you're not assuming when you hear that is American Shaman paid this UCLA person to say something that supported their perspective on a product that's making them millions of dollars. Interesting. Like you're not thinking that.
Right.
That is what science washing is at its like most fundamental level, I feel like.
Right. And it's not only like just like the people that they have like endorsing this. That's like one example. But they also like really might speak outside of the vernacular with this like high scientific language, because it makes it sound more legit, like you brought up with the was it like the receptors? Like
Right. Well, dude, 100%. Mu opioid receptors. One time, this happens all the time, and like sometimes when I talk about how like, oh, I'm trained in IFS, or like I have a background in neuroscience, like I've said that, and one time somebody asked me, oh, are you more interested in the Freudian psychology or Jungian psychology? And I'm just like, what are you talking about? It's like trying to, like, I know who those humans are, but like those are like historic models, and but when I said internal family systems, or like, which is a trauma therapy, like that's just very different from those types of models. And it's just using sciencey words to appear sciencey as opposed to understanding what you're talking about. And that's a lot of what they do. They use experts or small studies or whatever, or regulatory gray zones. Like, well, it's not scheduled yet.
Right.
What? But it's in the discussion to be scheduled in the same schedule level as heroin, but no one is saying that. No one is saying that. Well, it's not scheduled yet. And I was like, okay, but it's about to be. There's a debate that it's going to be scheduled for a Schedule 1 right next to heroin. What are we talking about here, guys?
Yeah. But even like as long as, that doesn't exist, then there is this like mindset of like, oh, if I can buy it, then it's going to be fine. And then, yes, you are absolutely getting manipulated with the marketing that is put on top of that. I feel like this is just driving home the marketing fact even more on like, even for those of you who are doing your research or trying to, they're on to that.
Yeah, 100%. To make it grayer and harder for you. I feel like the bottom line lens that you wrote in here is, if marketing sounds more confident than the research, trust the research, not the marketing.
Yes. If
100%.
there's one thing we can hammer home to you on this podcast ever, it should be that.
The hardest part on that is that people then will send one single study that, like, there's some guy that was, I forgot what he was posting about, but he posted some singular study about, AirPods. It was AirPods. He was posting some study about AirPods and non-ionizing radiation and all this stuff. I'm like, dude, the study you published literally in the screenshot shows that it was like 12 participants, and it's the only research paper that you're talking about. When in reality, if you look at the breadth of research, and this is the hard part, because we just said trust the research. Okay, but what is research? What does that mean? Does that mean trust one research paper that says 7.0 is good or bad?
No.
To some people it might, but that's not really what, if you're like, if you ever talk to a scientist, like a hardcore PhD, hard in the research scientist, they are almost so uncertain about things that you feel like what do you do all day? If you don't know anything, what do you do all day? But it's because they are so deep in the research that they understand how little they really know. And they understand how much evidence is on both sides almost every single argument. And so it's like really hard sometimes to drill them down into a definitive statement about something. Now, scientists are getting better at, in my opinion, science communication, where they're coming towards, they're sharing an opinion and can communicate that. But even the hardcore scientists struggle with, like, what does the research support? Trust the research, but also understand that, like, research is nuanced, and ChatGPT can help you with this. Get a bunch of research papers and ask it, hey, give me the pros and cons of this, and attack this as if you're a PhD person who's looking at both sides of this, and give me the evidence on both sides, side by side, and show me why this is strong and why this is weak. Like, you can do that. Like, it takes more work, sure, but you're not going to put a fucking opioid into your body when you think it is CBD. I mean, so it's worth it.
I recommend looking at that research yourself, but
I mean, I agree
would
with
never
you,
just put
but
it
the
into
average person is not going to.
Yes, obviously the biggest problem here is that people get strapped for time.
Well, strapped for time and knowing what to look at. Like, do you know how to look at a methodology section and what statistical methodology is better than another? You know, most people I feel like wouldn't know that. Well, I'm not. I'm talking about a rhetorical listener, CJ, not you.
Yeah, understandable. I mean, and like, again, like the FDA has plenty of free resources for this, and is generally like a pretty good source to go to. Super easy to even find like a whole sketchy line of business with Shaman Botanicals between them and the FDA, so that way this doesn't come as a surprise if you've been following their business practices through stuff like that. So when in doubt, like, of course, we know it's hard to get FDA approval through brands, but I mean, it's just an additional level of safety for yourself. As far as the last piece to what can this say about the wellness industry as a whole, I think has to focus a lot more on just industry in general, which is that incentives shape outcomes more than intentions.
Yeah, this is a great point. And it talks about essentially that founders, I love this because it talks about how founders don't generally wake up thinking, how can I hurt people? Which I think is important to think about. And like, we should talk about that too, because I don't necessarily know this guy personally or whatever, but I could see how if he is going from store to store day to day and his people are coming in struggling and they're like, I'm in so much pain, I just can't figure this out, like, help me. And a product that they're selling or whatever helps them, and they come back and like, oh my God, I feel so much better. Like, there's a part of me that could understand and put myself in his shoes in a way that is like, okay, I get it. You believe you're like a Robin Hood helping the average consumer who's in pain and struggling, and I totally get that. And so I could see from that perspective. I feel like we've got to talk about that and still be able to say what our opinion as well, necessarily, because profit margins are higher, stronger, more dependency forming molecules like 7-0. It's just how it is. White label manufacturing lets one facility feed a ton of different brands, and then the regulations are like behind all of the different innovations. So even if that was true, it just so happens that those things are also driving the highest profit margins, and over time, like, that's going to be an undeniable factor in the things that get pushed.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as a whole, like, I put this in there because whenever we hear from founders, like, that is most of it. They've had some sort of problem, like, specifically in their life, or feel like they've identified a gap that they want to get pushed out to the world. I don't know if I agree with that for this one, just because, again, when you look at like the history that they've had on like the back and forth and issues with other products, and of course like the marketing around this and giving it away for free, like this highly addictive product, you know, I think the water starts to get a little bit muddy on that. But as a whole, like, we don't want to just assume every wellness product that doesn't have X amount of research behind it is bad, and that all founders are poorly intentioned and, like, you know, just trying to exploit you for a profit margin. A lot of them do want to help. Unfortunately, you know, like, the research side of this doesn't really get rewarded. That's something that we've heard from a lot of founders on, like, they simply can't make money and like exist in the health and wellness industry with like the required amount of research to become a good product, just because of how inaccessible it is.
Right. And they're not incentivized either.
No.
They do that research and then it's not as if it helps them that much. Like, it just costs them a ton of money, and they get the warm and fuzzies, and it's something they should do. But then it's like, okay, well, I also want to keep my employees fed.
Right.
So maybe I won't bankrupt the company to do this and sell this thing and let the science catch up eventually. Like, it's all weird, and the system naturally is going to reward people who push the envelope the furthest. Like, just how it is. It's human nature. So you got to watch out for yourself a little bit on this one, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like on that, I think the rules and regulations being so far behind is a great point as well, just because rules and regulations are what help push some of this research. And so if there is no incentive on, hey, we're finding out, this about this ingredient in a supplement you might have, you have no incentive to fix it. You're just going to keep using it until someone says otherwise.
Right. Yeah. So just always ask, what are the incentives? What are the incentives? I'm always thinking that. I'm literally always thinking, what are the incentives behind this?
Right. And we try to ask people as much on the podcast as well, especially with some of the new questions that we've written.
Yeah, I'm excited for those. Those will be getting implemented soon. So, all right, let's move into our last little segment here. How to think like Decision Lab when you see products like this. So we've kind of been sharing a little bit of this already overall. The incentives question being one of the biggest ones. But the first question is, what's the level of evidence in this claim based on? You want to tell a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I mean, you'll hear us talk a lot to brands, asking them, what kind of studies is this done on? We also will eventually, do an episode examining this further. But you'll hear Cody ask, is it a double-blind placebo? Is it a randomized control trial? Have you conducted your own research? If it's just looking at preliminary research that has led up to this product, that doesn't necessarily support the product itself. So critical thinking as far as that.
Yeah, the big one here too is what CJ just articulated is preliminary research or research. The two biggest people in this space that mess with this is red light therapy, in my opinion, because we'll get there, and then just supplement companies in general, because a lot of red light devices will make claims about photobiomodulation research on their website, which is a full ass infrared sauna that's thousands of times stronger than the little tiny device that the consumer device that you're using. So that is not the same as doing research on the actual consumer product. A. B is the supplement companies that seem to think, well, ashwagandha, rhodiola, rosea, and bacopa are all great herbal natural supplements individually. They all have great benefits, reducing stress and like all the whatever claims that each of those things individually produce. And there's research to support those individual ingredients. So the supplement company then says, well, let me just throw all of those into one thing and then claim the benefits of all of them now that I put them all into one thing. The composition fallacy is what that is called. And it just does not pan out that way. Those things interact with each other in ways that they have not studied. Those things clinically in the research were probably in different dosages than what they are in the product, because there's only so much space in a little supplement pill or whatever it is, right? And they have no idea if the combined effect of those things is the same as the individual effect of the individual ingredients. It's just not. That is such a myth. I hate it. I have it on my notes on every episode. It drives me crazy when people do that. So just when you think of the level of evidence, like think about not just what type of study was it, what was studied.
Right. And on that, we also have the note on pay attention to what the outcomes are, which will lead into the marketing in a second. But it needs to be able to give you a pretty specific outcome it can't just make your life better. If it's a cure-all thing, it's probably not real. And we try to push that home a lot. Or if it says, specifically, maybe it's a red light device and it's going to improve your mobility or whatever. You can actually study that yourself anecdotally.
All right, next one is, our marketing claims proportionate to the evidence? Okay, this is super freaking easy. Does the website talk like the problem is fully solved, but the actual citations and the data that they're providing are preclinical or like preliminary studies? If that's the case, red flag. Huge red flag.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's like anything super extra to say here other than what we've already touched on, just because of how much marketing caused this issue specifically. But I mean, if we think about the way that this is being marketed, one, it's being given away, and it's being given away as a free pain relief device or supplement. And so that is talking like the problem of pain is fully solved, but we don't actually have any evidence to suggest that. And then, I mean, it also just follows along this line that we see, which is super confident story and being confident in this product versus really, really shaky evidence. Always try to like weigh those against each other, especially using, the research tactic, which we just mentioned.
The last question is, who benefits if I become a daily user? This is such a powerful question. Is the product you're meant to take, is it meant to take one time in once in a while with clear dosing and safety guidance, or is the business model built on you needing it every single day to feel normal, right? There's a big difference between those two things. Something I take every single day is Prepare Your Mind's Mood Magnesium. I freaking love the stuff. But if I don't take it, I'm not all of a sudden like withdrawing and can't sleep and whatever, right? Like they have a really great product. I really love the stuff that they put in it. It's very transparent. All of the stuff is on it, but I'm not dependent on said thing, right? That's way different than the 7-0 stuff where people are literally becoming addicted like it's an opioid.
Or even, I think like something that people are probably even more familiar with in the wellness space is like melatonin. Like that's something that you can access on shelves super easily, and you know you're supposed to take it for sleep. But if you don't take your melatonin every day, you're going to go through like a type of withdrawal. You're not going to be able to sleep. But also, if you don't continue to buy melatonin because your brain isn't producing, melatonin naturally anymore, you have to keep buying it and buying it and buying it, or to hit the same level of sleep.
100%. That's a great example. Couldn't agree more.
Right. So if
the answer to these questions are, if you're uneasy about them, then it's probably best to A, check if we have an episode with the actual product and go listen to that episode. And B, do not get that product. Surprise.
No. If it's like a daily vitamin or whatever, you think about that, like you're not going to get a withdrawal if you don't take it, but it's something that's probably good for you. That I think is probably like a good litmus test. If you're not going to go through withdrawal while doing it, not that bad.
Well, yeah,
I don't know.
Which I get can be hard that people wouldn't know, because this 7-0 supplement or whatever was promoted as.
You wouldn't have known that.
So it's like, just be careful. Like we've had products on that are, like one was a hoodie that you wear to sleep. Pretty low risk as far as
deep sleepwear.
If you wear that hoodie, deep sleepwear. If you put that hoodie on and it doesn't work, okay, take it off and you'll survive. You'll be all right. If it does work, great, awesome for you. That type of stuff, like that's an open door. You can walk in and out of that door. Some products are closed doors. When you start it, you walk in, you close the door behind you, and you're like, all right, I am here. Be more careful with those ones. And maybe don't just dive in blindly and do some of the things we just talked about.
I think that's a great point that we should even just like wrap up into this, is there is also a difference between stuff that you are like putting in your body versus maybe like an external product. It's like, even if a red light device, doesn't necessarily work for you, like you have the option to return that. You can stop doing it. You can return it. It's not going to hurt you. If you have started a supplement, you can't just return that. You can't just get rid of it. You have put that in your body and it may have had an impact by now. So I think that's something especially that you mentioned in the Deep Sleepwear episode that I would like to reiterate here.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think it's so important. This is why the Decision Lab exists. So, I mean, for us, this isn't just a story about like one company in Kansas City. I mean, I truly knew this was what this episode was about, but just as we went through it, I was like, this is why. Literally, this is why we do the Decision Lab. To unpack research like this, to expose marketing tactics that are way ahead of evidence, and to just highlight brands and products who welcome scientific scrutiny instead of trying to dodge it. Like that is our thesis and why we exist. So this has been beautiful. I love it. This is a great episode.
Absolutely. And I mean, on top of that, like we will maintain our commitment to you as our listeners and looking at what does research actually say? How are people maybe being targeted? And how can we help you actually make decisions that are going to support your long-term health? Because we care about it.
Yeah, 100%. And helping you discern what's right from wrong. So if this was a helpful episode, please share it with someone who's overwhelmed with all the different hype in the wellness space and all the different options that are about there. And then, as always, please keep bringing up conversations and investigations that you want us to chat with or talk about or have conversations about, and we will help separate like what actually works from what actually sells, because we have science backgrounds and we have over 1 million followers, so we understand both sides of this, or we have a unique lens, at least bare minimum, on this whenever we hop on here. So that's what Decision Lab's all about, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to get more stories like this. If you guys have, heard of anything in the health and wellness industry that's maybe like a little bit less product based like this, or is a little bit more of a news story, this is something kind of different for us. So let us know if you liked it, and I'll catch you in the comments section. Make sure to question everything, especially your own beliefs.
See you next time, people.
Bye.